The present and future of Penn State Wrestling made an absolute statement this weekend at these freestyle tournaments, which now begs the question, not when Oklahoma State and Iowa would catch up, but will they actually ever catch up?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is right. You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling. And thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State Wrestling and Penn State Football. He is the voice of Penn State Wrestling. If you want expertise, you go to Jeff Byers, best in the business out there. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Going to get a little bit of an early preview of Final X as Luke Lilledahl is set to take on Spencer Lee. What are the chances that Lilledahl could pull off what would be an upset against Spencer Lee? More takeaways about the U20 and U23 results as the present and the future of Penn State Wrestling impressed. And that's where we're going to begin with the fact of how this is relevant to the Folkstyle scene, the collegiate scene, with Oklahoma State and Iowa trying to make a push. Honestly, Cornell's it seems like they got a lot of top wrestlers on these recent big boards from 25 and 2026. But tangibly, Jeff, these off-season results are hard to ignore. I know it is freestyle compared to Folkstyle, but PJ Duke, Marcus Blaze, you factor in Masanosuke Ono, William Henkel's in that U20 lineup, the Mirasola twins, and Jeff, it's the U23 lineup that really says it all. Guys that still have 3 years of eligibility, 70% of this lineup for the U23 team are Penn State wrestlers. It just speaks volumes to where this team is in comparison to everyone else.
Yeah, no, I think obviously it had a terrific showing. I think the three incoming freshmen and then the Mirasolas, obviously all very special talents. And I think guys that have that combination, obviously the skill set that you need to be a special wrestler. But I think they really bring the mindset of just humility, wanting to get better every day, trying to challenge themselves, not being afraid of, failing along the way if it'll help them improve and get to greater goals down the road. So hard not to be excited about, obviously, where the program is right now, but certainly the future as well when you start watching not just the results, but you see the way these guys are going about their business, the way they're competing, and even the interviews, Zach. I'm so impressed with the way they handle themselves, with the big picture that they approach everything with. And I think it just, again, bodes very, very well for the future of Penn State wrestling.
And like I said, it's the multiple years of eligibility. I understand that Levi Haynes is on this U23 team, and guys will either accept or deny these bids, but it's the fact that they have the option, that they are the first in line. The world team is Penn State's wrestling team. And that's, you get Rocco Welsh in the transfer portal, Mitchell Messenbrink and Levi Haynes are the veterans of the group. But then it's guys like Luke Lilledahl, who still have 3 years of eligibility, and Josh Barr as well. These guys are competing at Final X2 on the senior level. So when we relate it to Oklahoma State and Iowa, you have Jax Forrest, which is going to be, he has the potential of being a four-timer. If everything goes well, that's his kind of potential. He's in that same category as Marcus Blaze and PJ Duke. Oklahoma State's class of 2026 is phenomenal. At this point in time, it's objectively better than Penn State. That has to do with the fact that there is a lot of room at Oklahoma State for them to land these commitments. The reason Oklahoma State's class is so much better in 2026 than Penn State's, if you generally ask the experts around the recruiting rankings and whatnot and around wrestling, but this is all a response to what Penn State did in 2024 and 2025. It would have been unprecedented, historic, if Cale Sanderson was able to do that 3 years in a row. But the fact that Penn State did so well in 24 and 25 is why Oklahoma State's class in 26 is the way it is. It's a response to what Penn State has already done.
Yeah, it is interesting. One of the things that I think is changing, has changed, and it's just going to take a while for some of us, I think, to adjust to it is with the additional scholarships now. There was a time, and I think all sports do this collegiately, where when you had the 9.9 scholarship limit, all right, you're looking and seeing, all right, yeah, this is the top kid at 125 coming out this year, but we think this kid that's coming out the following year is going to be better. So we're not going to spend, we'll go after both kids, but the one we really want might be a year behind. So you take a hit maybe in a given year because you're looking at the 4 or 5 year picture. Well, now that changes a little bit because you can go after both those guys. You have scholarships to go after both. And I think, Kale's on top of this, obviously, as much as anybody, and Casey and Cody and Nick Lee now. And I think these guys are recognizing the importance of getting guys in and then kind of letting the chips fall where they may. But go ahead and go out, get the best kids you can find in your room. And I'm really curious to see how some of this stuff plays out in terms of whether guys stay, even if they're not in the starting lineup. And I'm talking about some of the elite recruits with very, very high credentials. Again, you'll only have 10 starters. It's fine that you have all of these scholarships. It's great that you're bringing all of these kids in. But one of the things I think that you're seeing now is some of these kids are, I think, more focused on the freestyle and international opportunities. Others are focused more on folk style and, hey, I want to see what I can do collegiately. And a growing number, I think, are very interested in both. I want to be at the top level of both. But if you're unable to make headway in one or the other, do you still stay at a place like Penn State or with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club because you think that this is the best opportunity to achieve your ultimate goals, whatever they may be in the sport? And again, it's not going to be the same answer for everybody. But I'm curious to see how over the next 5 or 6 years things play out here, because even for non-starters, and I think Penn State, maybe Iowa and Oklahoma State would be the others that would be in this category. But I do think there will be opportunities, sponsorship opportunities, NIL opportunities for non-starters at a place like Penn State. I think some of these kids, just with the name recognition and the following and some of the accolades they have, again, even if they aren't in the starting lineup, I'm not talking that they're going to go out and get millions of dollars and be, wildly
be nice.
But I do think there's going to be some opportunities there. Hey, I'm still a special wrestler, obviously part of a really special program. And, I think there's some opportunities that will be there for some of those guys. And I don't think there's any question. I mean, the results speak for themselves in terms of the development that Penn State is able to provide for top-level wrestlers. I don't think anybody does it as well. I know nobody does it better.
Let's tangibly address Oklahoma State and Iowa's situations compared to Penn State. Oklahoma State is doing the right things. If there's any threat to Penn State's wrestling reign here with Cale Sanderson, it is David Taylor in Oklahoma State. Between the resources, the commitment, the brand, the history, I will give them that. And David Taylor has shown immediate results by taking Dean Hamady and Wyatt Hendrickson, guys who were, hey, they are all Americans, but they just struggle to take that next step. They get to Stillwater, and they don't just take a step, they take a leap. So there is tangible proof that Oklahoma State can do it. Iowa, I'm back and forth on them because at one moment, but then you have the dual meet result. And then you kind of have an underwhelming finish outside of some of the individual champions the individuals that made it further in the NCAA tournament. But then, like I said, it was almost the inverse of that. David Taylor brings in a couple of transfer portal wrestlers. They do phenomenally. At Iowa, they take a bit of a step backwards. So that's just recent, though. Oklahoma State's the closest. You and I kind of talked about that, hey, maybe 2028, 2029, because you got to give this class of 2026 time to settle in. But as we say that, we see what Jayden James was able to do this weekend. Despite losing to D. Lockett, he moved up an age group and finished as the runner-up at that U23 World Team trials. Penn State's not finished. If they want to land any more commitments in 2026, they certainly could add here. But like I said, it's how crowded 24 and 25 were, which is why, as you said, hey, you can afford a step back in 2026, but that's where Oklahoma State has made a lot of progress. So even still, 28-29, that's kind of the best case scenario for Oklahoma State.
Yeah, and I still think when you look, and obviously we'll see how it all plays out. That's going to be the fun of following all of these programs in the coming years. But I just think Penn State has positioned itself very well, not obviously with the room they have, but I think even with the recruits they have coming in, and you just listen to these guys talk, Zach, and obviously you love watching them wrestle, but I'm just so impressed with the way they approach the sport, with the big picture mentality they have. When you look at the accolades of a PJ Duke or a Marcus Blaze, it would be, I think, pretty easy to start to rest on your laurels a little bit and to start, feeling your oats a little more than what these guys seem to. And, we were talking earlier this week on another show. I think that that combination of confidence, which you have to have to succeed in any sport, but certainly in wrestling, if you're not confident when you go out on the mat, you have no chance. I mean, you just have to have a belief in yourself and what you're able to do. But you have to combine the confidence with humility and understanding that as accomplished as you are, there's still a ton to learn. And I have a 9-year-old, and I'm talking to him all the time about Cal Sanderson doesn't know all there is to know about wrestling. There's just not anybody in the world that ever has. It's just a sport that has so many nuances, so many subtleties, so many different ways to approach things. And obviously we're learning all the time about different, dietary advantages that can be gained, sleeping habits, weight training, all of the different things that everybody, continues to analyze. So these guys all, again, when you listen to them, it's like, I know I have a lot to learn. I'm excited about learning. And they just have that passion, the love for the sport, the love for competing, and that desire to learn, to get better. And I do think it's going to be exciting. And I do think Oklahoma State is coming, and I think they're going to be very good. I don't think Penn State's going anywhere anytime soon, just because of the caliber of wrestler they have, but more so to me, it's the caliber of person that they're recruiting and that they're pairing together in that room right now.
Those U20, U23 tournaments, Rocco Welsh was the one at the U23 that, just blitzed his way through the competition, but it was the U20 side of it to see 5 individual champions being the reps for the world team, but also somebody like Jayden James, who impressed as well, even though he did not take one of the spots. But we're going to talk about what the future showed for Penn State wrestling this past weekend, coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. How does $200 in bonus bets sound? Well, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up, because when you head over to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you will get $200 in bonus bets. The NBA playoffs are in the home stretch here. Every night's going to deliver highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can't miss moments. Whether it's that game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. Yes, there are lines posted on FanDuel for the Indiana Pacers and Oklahoma City Thunder in this series, the final series. The Pacers are 9.5-point underdogs, plus 320 on the money line, minus 405 on the money line. For the Thunder, the total is set at 231 points. If you like those lines, you can bet that over at FanDuel.com, and you could use that $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. If you're looking to bet on Penn State, even in the offseason, win totals are posted on FanDuel. Do you think Penn State's going to go over or under 10.5 wins? You can use the bonus bets towards that as well. Again, head over to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Jeff, I got to say, I like that hat too. I really, I like the hat, and thank you for bringing it onto the show. The takeaways from the U20 tournament are the fact that, hey, you know what you're going to get from PJ Duke and Marcus Blaze. They continue to already say that, hey, we're here. We're going to be forces to be reckoned with for the next 4 years. And then obviously beyond that in freestyle. If they're doing this now, senior level, U20, U23 senior level, it doesn't matter. Those guys are dominating already fresh out of high school. It is William Henkel, who we've talked about. We said that, hey, he could be one of the next great ones. And look at that. The result against Brock Mantanona speaks volumes. And the format of the tournament is a little unfair to me, I think, in the fact that that's why you got to win at the US Open, so you don't get in that situation. But yeah, it was Henkel who went back and forth with Brock Mantanona the last time they met at the US Open. Yeah. It was close. It was back and forth. And then 2 dominant victories where he teched him each time with ease. Was that fatigue because Brock Mantanona had to wrestle all the way back through? That certainly contributed. But Henkel, that wasn't the case with every single match in those finals. If it was, you would have seen that across the board. Henkel was the only one to double tech his opponent at U20. And then Jayden James getting to the final, not being able to catch D. Lockett, but he's a year behind him in terms of eligibility. So he still has a lot to learn. But it was the 10-0 result against fellow Penn State wrestler or, affiliated wrestler, Joe Seeley. So I look at William Henkel and say, okay, he's pretty close to PJ Duke and Marcus Blaze in terms of caliber and potential. And Jayden James showed that 2026, I mean, he could be one of the best in the class of 2025 if he was in this group.
Yeah, for sure. That all very good elite wrestlers, and I think again, very good people. I think one of the things with wrestling and just kind of over the years, you learn kind of how the sport is, and I suppose it's like this in other sports where baseball is probably to me the most comparable, where the Colorado Rockies could beat the New York Yankees on a given game.
Do they even have 10 wins at this point, Jeff?
Right. The Yankees are clearly the better team. Well, in wrestling, again, you can get a kid who clearly is not as good of a wrestler, but you hit one move and, you pin your opponent, or you just get on a roll in a given day. And there's so many things that go into, to me, wrestling and being able to wrestle at your best or to be on. And, you don't know sometimes, obviously, as a fan or a media member, some of the things that might be going on. Maybe there's, girlfriend or home issues. Maybe there's, something going on with your family members. Maybe you just didn't get a good night's sleep. There's just so many different things that can factor in to somebody's performance on a given day. And I think where sports fans are just by nature, we're very overreactionary, good and bad. Oh, my team stinks. Oh, my team's the best. Actually, they're probably somewhere in between. But when it comes to results, again, you could not be impressed with William Henkel and what he did. But does it mean that he's clearly just miles above anybody else in the weight class at the moment? Again, it was a great performance. It's the one sport where, again, it's a snapshot, and then the next snapshot you get may look entirely different, or it may look very similar. But it's more of to me, I don't get caught up in one or two results. It's like, all right, over the course of a year or a couple of years, you start to really get a feel. All right, this is where these guys really are, and you can see, sometimes if a guy is closing the gap a little bit, if another guy is widening the gap, if they're both just continuing to progress at about the same rate. And that's kind of the fun of the sport is being able to have those measuring sticks. That being said, again, you had to be impressed with Henkel, the way he wrestled. And I think he did show why he should be included when you're talking about this next class of greats for Penn State, that it's not just Duke and Blaze coming in, that Henkel is right there ready for prime time as well.
174 opens up after Levi Haynes. That's kind of the projection, but it's going to be an intense competition. I don't want to overlook Coach Casey's son, Asher Cunningham. It could be in the fold as well. Joe Seeley, somebody who is around this weight class, does he ultimately bulk up? So we'll see. But he is one of the prime contenders, I would say, to take over for Levi Haynes. Let's pivot to the Mirasola twins, because they are some of the others that made a U20 team. And I say that so just kind of dismiss it like, oh yeah, they were the favorites, and they were favored in this instance because Freestyle is just there. That's the name of I think they're, just from what we've seen, I guess they've had more opportunities to showcase this, that Freestyle is just better suited for them. I'm not saying that they struggle in Folkstyle or that they were top recruits for a reason. As it was, they dominated at the high school level. But between what Connor's just so offensively gifted and Cole, Jeff, you can correct me. I posed this on a recent show that maybe down the road, I don't want to speak for him, but it does intrigue me because Cole is undersized at heavyweight. If he does go back down and cuts to 97 kilos when his collegiate career is done, it's because there's no middleweight, there's no 215, 220 weight class. And I think I just think that's wrong. I don't know why they can't do that, but besides the point, but Connor and Cole just have such a skill set offensively that makes it so much better suited for them in Freestyle, and just what gives them such an upper hand in these head-to-head matchups across the board, no matter who they're facing.
Yeah, they really do just have a great natural feel for it and kind of take the opportunities when they present. They're very, very good at capitalizing on those scoring opportunities, and obviously both very tough to score on themselves. I actually think both of their games are going to translate very well to Folkstyle, and we'll see. Again, it's all going to play out in the coming years, but I think they both are on track to achieve a lot in both styles of wrestling, and both in the NCAA realm, and also on the world stage here moving down the road when we get to the senior championships. I just think they're both very gifted, but really both are grinders. They embrace the opportunity to really outwork their opponents and try to figure out ways to wear them down, whether, again, it's Folkstyle or Freestyle. But it is neat to see brothers come along like this and be able to kind of push each other a little bit, but then be there in the corner for one another when they get to the world stage. And I think, it was good to see both of them get there. It's always tough when you get a situation like that and one guy goes and one doesn't, and you're just obviously very happy for one, but you're kind of agonizing over the other. Just makes it a lot easier, I think, for the family. I know John, that their dad posted a few photos of just the three of them being enjoying the moment. I'll put it that way.
Does it make sense that at some point in time that maybe, because Cole, that's his natural weight, was around that 215, 220, could be 97 kilos on the international stage makes somewhat sense.
Yeah, I think as he continues to bulk up, it could. I mean, it wouldn't shock me, but I kind of think he's all in here on getting his body size bigger, and I think he'll continue to put that good weight on. Now, again, down the road, hard to say what somebody's going to think in 4 or 5 years and what they're going to feel. But I won't be surprised if he ends up staying up, just because I think he's going about this the right way, trying to put that good weight on and getting a better and better feel with each competition of kind of what it takes to compete at the higher weight class.
It goes back to what you said in the beginning of this conversation about character, that he's willing, he's not stubborn, saying that, well, I came in around 97 kilos, so at some point in time, he's all focused in on what can I do to be the best heavyweight possible and be the best with what Penn State needs me to be.
Yeah. No, and I think it's one of the characteristics that the coaching staff certainly looks for when they're out on the recruiting trail. And I really think throughout Cale's tenure here, that's what you've seen. It's been a very selfless team and a lot of selfless individuals that have come through this program.
Well, he's a part of this group with the next 3 to 4 years of Penn State wrestling being already at top tier. Luke Lilledahl is one of them. This would be a shock for, I think, a lot of people, but I do think it's going to be closer than most would expect. Could Luke Lilledahl actually do it and pull off an upset against Spencer Lee at Final X in the coming weeks? Well, we're going to talk about that to wrap up the show. Coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Luke Lilledahl takes on Spencer Lee at Final X, 57 kilos. Lilledahl, I've seen him get smarter as a competitor. Freestyle, kind of the same thing. I can't speak for him and say that, hey, this is his preference, but you just notice that he's got an extra edge. I think there's just with what he's done already on the international stage, being a world champion. I mean, this is his time to kind of disrupt the flow of things, upset the apple cart. Spencer Lee. Now here's the thing about Spencer Lee. I do think at this point in time, I do lean Spencer Lee. I'm not going to say that, hey, I'm really thinking that Luke Lilledahl pulls this off. Somebody made a really good point, so I can't take full credit for this, but I think it's an appropriate assessment that Lee's wrestling career at this top tier has been fairly a roller coaster. That with the end of his high school career, the end of his collegiate career, and he just gets so close to that moment of glory and then ultimately falls short, but he keeps coming back for more. He just keeps coming back. He keeps coming back. So at some point in time, eventually he's going to seize his moment. Spencer Lee, I think if he continues on this path, would be an Olympic champion. I mean, he took Olympic silver. Like I said, he just gets so close. And he just doesn't get past the finish line at Spurs. So he's had that heartbreak. So I imagine he's kind of numb to all the pain at this point in time. But I think Lilledahl is a formidable opponent. The second Lee is ready to pass the torch, it's going straight to Lilledahl. I don't see anybody else after that.
Yeah, I mean, there may be some other guys coming up. I do think Lilledahl is as you said, just gets a little better every time out. Just seems to pick up something from each match, win or lose along the way. I think for Spencer Lee, the good thing about the losses that he's had is I do think it helps keep that drive and the fire within him. And I think he approaches everything with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder now. And again, in wrestling, I never rule anything out. It's just a sport where, again, maybe somebody doesn't get a good night's sleep. Maybe they turn an ankle and aren't moving the way you expect them to, or, in a lifting session, they just tweak something. It's just hard to know. And again, it doesn't take much to throw you off your game or to open up a window of opportunity for an opponent. All of that being said, yeah, Spencer Lee clearly is the guy to beat. I guess I'm approaching him. Again, I certainly don't rule out the possibility of Luke Lilledahl winning. I don't rule out the possibility of anybody beating anybody else when it comes to Final X or really just about any of these top-level wrestling matches. But, Spencer just has so much experience, so much strength. I mean, his power is just I don't know that we've seen anything quite like it at that weight. So, to me, I'm looking more to see, all right, can Luke Lilledahl close the gap? Does it look, and I don't even mean score-wise, does it look like he's getting closer here in terms of the way he's wrestling? Again, in freestyle, especially if, one guy gets a leg lace and all of a sudden you turn him 4 times and one of the match is over. Yeah, I dominated him. Well, again, maybe you meet again. If the other guy gets the first takedown and he gets the leg lace, you have the opposite result. So to me, the score will be part of it, but it's just, what does it look like? Does it look like Luke Lilledahl is closing the gap? I also am really interested to see. Obviously, Ono now is at Penn State. I'm just the strategy.
Bring that up, yeah.
The strategy part of this, I do think, is going to be interesting to watch from both sides to see just kind of what changes Lilledahl makes from the last time they met and what changes Spencer Lee makes as they both try to, again, continue to improve. Obviously, try to get on the world team here. The nice thing, I think, from Lilledahl's perspective, and I don't think he's approaching it this way, I guess more so from the Penn State perspective, is I don't think he has anything to lose. I think he can go out there, let it fly, have some fun, see where the chips fall, and then you move on and you continue to improve. You're going into your second year of college. You're taking on a guy that is a veteran and then some, and really has gone through just about anything and everything you could imagine this sport has to offer, from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. Obviously, has battled through injuries. And I mean, he's just a guy that when you talk about veteran, Spencer Lee kind of epitomizes veteran. He's just seen and gone through, again, I think everything this sport can bring on you. And I think he has shown a toughness that is very special. And I think that resiliency is something you do have to tip your hat to, regardless of who you are in the sport. If you watch him compete, you give him a lot of credit for the way he goes about competing.
The key to this match very well might be Masanosuke Ono and what happened at that Flow Wrestling event. So we'll see if, yes, Lilledahl has any pointers there, but Spencer Lee battle tested, to say the very least, the strength. Yeah. But Lilledahl, where Spencer Lee is so defensively sound, Lilledahl is so offensively sound. So you're really getting a strength versus strength. Which one prevails, we will ultimately see and very much break down more in the not too distant future. That is going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Jeff Byers, the voice of Penn State Wrestling. My name is Zach Seyko, your host of the show. As always, let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us a part of your regular routine. If you're new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, Jeff, thank you so much for the time, as always, the expertise, the conversation around Penn State wrestling, as well as what's to come here with the freestyle senior level final X's. That's an early preview of what we're going to talk about in the not too distant future. So, Jeff, thank you for the time, as always, and can't wait to catch up again very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Zach.